Alright, today I will be doing a Think Out Loud evaluation of this site, martinlutherking.org. If you come on up to the URL bar, as we have talked about in class, you can see the exact web address for this website, and this site happens to be a .org, and what that means is that it is a nonprofit organization. Now, usually nonprofit organizations are fairly credible in that they are not out to make money. But, as you will see today, some nonprofit organizations have websites and do not dispense accurate or valid information. So let's take a look at this, martinlutherking.org. This would be something that could come up very easily on a Yahoo search or a Google search, and you may learn new things about Martin Luther King on this site. First, let's look for an author. We already know that is a .org, so we're looking for something to say who the author is for. We can come all the way down to the bottom. Usually at the bottom is where all the page information is, so we can see this is hosted by Stormfront. So let's click on that. Let's see what Stormfront is. I've never heard of them. As we're waiting for that to load, you can look at some other things here. We can see some rap lyrics that might be interesting to look into. Watch the new Martin Luther King educational video. That's something we might want to look up. Oh, here's some good information. Why the Martin Luther King holiday should be repealed. Very interesting. Alright, so here we go. This is published by stormfront.org, and we can look already up here at the very top left hand corner, White Pride worldwide. So we already know that this is the martinlutherking.org is made by a white supremacist group. That is a group that advocates for whites being better race than others. You can come down here, you can see a whole bunch of information exposing that point of view. Okay, so that's already the author, so we know the author is not the most valid source in the world. Obviously, they have a bias, which is our next thing that we're going to be looking for, and we'll be looking for bias throughout this whole thing. We know that is made by a white supremacist group, so probably they will not like a person who was as revolutionary for change in America as Martin Luther King. If we come over here, why the King holiday should be repealed, very interesting article. We can read on about why it should be repealed. And if you read about this article, it will say that Martin Luther King having his own holiday is better than George Washington, because George Washington has only President's Day, which he shares with all the other presidents. But Martin Luther King gets his own holiday, and that is because of the black agenda in America. Very trustworthy? No, I think not. This shows that they are out to discredit Martin Luther King, and so we know that they already have a strong bias, and we know after talking about it in class that any site with bias is not something that you should necessarily listen to. You want something that has no bias at all so that you can hear from all sides. Let's go ahead and let's load another page here, Truth About King. Notice they do not refer to him as Dr. King, which is a title that he has gotten for his work. That is a sign of respect, calling him by his formal name, but they do not want to call him that. The Beast as Saint. Again, this is disparaging Dr. Martin Luther King. Again, they do not talk to him as Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay? And if you go through this page, you will see all sorts of information discrediting him and talking about how he copied a sermon from somebody else, which is actually pretty common practice within churches in America. Many pastors do not have enough material to always be coming up with something new every week, so they have to kind of borrow off of other ideas. Books are written by the same way. We can borrow ideas from other people as long as we give them credit, and the majority of the ideas are our own. If you come down here, Martin Luther King at Communist Training School. So now not only are they bashing Martin Luther King, but they are calling him a communist, which is obviously an enemy of the United States. If you go down more, you can read more about him, but let's go look at something else here. let's look at, Jews and the civil right. We know that white supremacists do not like Jews. If you read this page, you will find out that Jews decided to support Martin Luther King because of their own Jewish agenda and how they want to rule the United States and support the nation of Israel. Again, attacking people, not using facts necessarily, but just attacking people for their beliefs. This is one of my most, this is one of my favorite pages on the site, The Death of a Dream. If you come on here, there's a very short caption of an article that is not very valid from Newsweek, which is a good source, but the information in here comes from a source that is not named. We do not know who's making these allegations that Martin Luther King, if you read this, had illicit sex for up to 14 hours before he was killed and actually be a white woman. It is also interesting to note that when somebody is referred to as white, it is capitalized, but if you look at sites on here or other text on here, when it refers to black, it does not capitalize them. So again, it shows bias. The author is not credible. We know that this site is not very good. You can see that it's fairly cheaply made. It is impossible to navigate back to the home page from here. It looks like some white supremacist was making this in their basement, and it is not a site that we can trust. So even though it is a .org, it is a good example of a nonprofit coming up with information that's not very good. Now I would like to talk about what you can learn from sites like this and what you can learn from thinking aloud through websites. It is always a good idea to look at the author, look for bias, look for credibility, look for an editor, any information about who's making a site before you can really judge it that well. Then, if you cannot find any of that information, look around at the quality of a website. Usually a site that has good money behind it will look good, and a site that has good money behind it is probably an organization that has wider support. This site does not. If you think aloud through exercise like this, it'll help you put your thoughts together and critically evaluate anything. Before necessarily digging into the information so much, if you just do a quick glance through, try to find author, try to find a bias, it is a very good idea to do that. You can learn a whole lot about that, and it can be used for any site, not just this site, but for anything else. Thanks for your time.